Hey bitches, welcome back to another episode of Confessionals. Today's topic, I'm going to be talking about the art of starting over. This, I believe, is a really important topic because a lot of people are scared of starting over. And I know that attacking your fears and taking ownership of your life is a pretty common theme in the things I talk about on this podcast. But today I want to focus on what it means to start over in your life over and over again. For me, this is something that I've kind of always done unintentionally. I've lived many lives, I've done many things, but in the past before I moved here to LA, I felt like I was starting over because I made mistakes and I just had to do it again. Not that there's anything wrong with making mistakes. I mean, I think that is a perfectly fine reason to start over if you feel like you made a mistake in your life. But now, because I'm doing it intentionally, I don't consider the things I've done mistakes. Like, for example, before I moved to LA, I started over by doing my master's. So like when I did my bachelor's, I had a horrible GPA. It was like probably like a 2.1 or something like that. And I didn't have a job for like a year. I didn't look for a job. I didn't do shit. I was just partying and gaining weight and not really the best time of my life, honestly. But things got to the point where I'm like, okay, I need to do something. I need to start over. And I didn't even want to go to school, but I went and then I didn't do well. So what do I do now? So I did a master's, did really well for that program. And yeah, that was kind of starting over. Or another example is the religion thing. I've talked about on this podcast. I used to be in a cult. There's an episode on that. And once I snapped out of that manic episode, I had to start over. I had to do my life all over again, do the things that I never got to do, and just, start over. But all of those things I feel like they emphasized my previous mistakes, and it was just like another attempt. And it wasn't really intentional. I just kind of did what I did out of impulse, like the mistake and the starting over. Now, I feel like starting over is so intentional for me because I build from the past and from my past experiences. So, for example, with acting, I came to LA and I started acting, and everything that I knew that the industry was going to be was it. And it felt worse than what I thought it was going to feel. And I learned so many new things that I decided to start over and do things in a different way from the information that I had gained previously. So it wasn't like, oh, I made a mistake going into acting. No, I felt like I did the best that I could at the time, being very mindful of the path that I was taking. And now, taking all of that into consideration, I'm gonna completely not discard that, but put it to the side and begin a new journey that's gonna implement the lessons that I learned in the past. Before, in my previous examples, I kind of was just like, oh, I fucked up. Okay, let me just do this again. And sometimes I'd do well, sometimes I would do not so well, sometimes I'd take the lessons, but it was just kind of all over the place. Whereas now, again, I am super intentional with what I do. So I'm going to talk about how I become intentional with the starting over process. I'm also going to really dive into how to attain the confidence, the self-esteem, and the bravery to have the courage to keep starting over. Because I think starting over is such like I think it's like a blessing. It's themed as a good thing and it's refreshing, but a lot of people are so scared of it because it kind of implies that you are abandoning your progress or that you have nothing. And I don't think that's true. I think starting over is a sign of growth and a sign of gaining knowledge and learning, because now I'm excited to experiment and try different things and start over. And I'm not scared to fail at them or to make mistakes, because now my mistakes are not messy. Like, I'm not a messy person anymore. And it's just like a game. Like, it really is, like, life is a game. There's really nothing to be afraid of if you're blessed to live in a first world country, to have full autonomy and choice over your life. I think that's the most important thing. Abandoning people pleasing tendencies is a big one. So I think starting over is overall just a positive thing. And the main ingredient to it is having confidence, having self-esteem, and having authority, taking authority over your life. But yes, without further ado, let's get this episode started. Before I get into the art of starting over, I think a lot of people are afraid to get started, period. When I moved to LA, or right before I moved to LA, I was trying to convince my friends back home in Texas to move with me, that we would room together, that it would be so much cheaper, and they had really nothing tying them to Texas, like nothing at all. They had their families, but so did I. And when I mentioned it to them, they were like, oh my God, that would actually be so great. I would love to live in a city like that. That's always been my dream. I, don't want to live here forever. Like, when I would present the idea, they were usually enthusiastic. But once I followed up about like the technicalities and getting an apartment and jobs and all that, crickets, nothing. And it is scary to take a jump like that, like moving to a new city where you don't know anybody. But I don't know, having done it, I know I talk about this a lot on my podcast, but having done it, it's really not that bad. Like, it really is true that the fear is, what is the quote? The fear of fear is the fear. The fear of fear. The fear is worse. No. I'm going to look this up. Alexa, what is that quote about the fear of fear is the fear itself?
The fear of oneself is the worst of all fears, the deepest of all horrors, and the most common of all errors. Fear of failure, fear of the unknown.
Alexa, what is that Franklin Roosevelt quote about fear?
The only thing we have to fear is fear itself, is a famous Franklin D. Roosevelt quote about fear.
The only thing we have to fear is the fear. Bitch, I can't even fucking say it. Whatever. Damn, that was loud. Oops. Whatever. Alexa, can you say that quote again, please?
The only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
The only thing we have to fear is fear itself, bitch. Really, moving here was not that bad. It really was not that bad. I don't know if you could hear the Alexa. I hope you could. It was whatever. But yeah, it really wasn't that bad. It was actually very peaceful. I've said this many times before. I've regurgitated this a billion times, but I came from a pretty bad environment back home. So when I moved here, I actually had no fears at all. Like, I was just eager to get out of the situation I was in. But I also understand, like, the friends that I was trying to convince, they had a lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them had a similar background to me. And I understand how the fear feels, because I had been wanting to move since I was 14 years old, and I didn't move until I was 25. And I wanted to move to California after high school graduation at 18, and I had everything planned, and it just, I could have done it, but I had a lot of obstacles. I had a mother that just would not let me and locked me in my house. So, I mean, I could have still done it. I could have just like ran away. I could have escaped. I was 18. But I understand how things can be really scary, how abandoning your current environment is, you know, it's scary. I get it. But there has to be a point where you're just tired of your own shit. And taking that initial jump, like jumping in that cold pool, is really the hardest part. Like once you jump in the pool, yeah, it's gonna be cold for like a minute, and then you're gonna feel great afterwards, and you're not gonna want to get out. So that's really what life takes, is just taking that initial jump and not caring about what other people think. I have lived so many lives. Like I mentioned in the intro, I had that religious period, and then I left the cult, so I had to start over. And oh my God, that shit was messy. Like I had no awareness or awareness of the concept of starting over. Like I just knew that I had to, but it wasn't intentional. Like I just kind of, it was all just very primal. The way that I just wanted to do things, I just wanted to get things out of my system. I just wanted to feel, to experience. I was extremely emotionally dysregulated. But I think that when you make important choices, when you take that initial jump of bravery, when you choose to start over and experiment with different life paths, you have to be emotionally regulated. You have to have your shit together, at least mentally. Maybe not on the external, like a lot of things could be going on, but mentally, you have to just be very mindful of the steps that you take and the reasons why you're doing what you're doing. There's steps to the art of starting over. That's how I titled this episode, but there's definitely steps to it. Before, like I said, everything was pretty just all over the place. It was very messy. And once I started being intentional with the way that I conducted my life and my well being, I brainstormed ideas. I had plans. I had things written out, and I knew how things worked. So, like, for example, with acting, that was my first step. That was my first initial jump. You have to get started first. And I spent a year doing research on the business, the industry, on acting itself. I took master classes, I made short films. I worked full time while I was going to school full time as well, doing a master's degree. Like, I really fucking hustled that year. I miss that energy. I'm kind of trying to get back in that energy because my mind was just so focused. And even though there was a lot of chaos in my life, I made a decision and I stuck to it, and I had a plan. So I stuck to the plan. I think it's really hard for people to attack their fears and to really get started when they're just ideating about a brighter future and how things could be in a new city or in a new job or in a new school or new friends. Like, it's really hard to put things into action and to start and to attack your fears when it's just a fantasy in your head. But when you have a concrete plan that you've put time into, it's so much easier to commit to it. So with acting, I did a bunch of research on acting itself, on the business, on the industry. I made my own projects. I was saving money. I was looking up apartments, all that stuff. Things came to attack me and to attack my plans during that time. I had a really toxic ex-boyfriend that was trying to get back together with me. Family member is a kind of similar deal that didn't want me to move, so I had to keep it from them until like a few months before the move. Yeah, I had a lot of things attacking me. The pandemic, that was like, honestly, the people were a bigger obstacle than the pandemic itself, and that'll paint a picture. But I had all these negative things just yapping at me over my shoulder, telling me not to move, not to do it. And it was it wasn't easy, but it was easier to stick to the plan because I had a plan, because I had a roadmap of what I needed to do. Like, it kind of gives you a sense of accomplishment, and the stakes are higher. So if you don't do it, you feel guiltier because you had all of this set up. And I know this by experience, because during high school, I was planning to move to LA. That was my first plan, right? Like to move to California. So at first it was Santa Barbara. I was thinking about Santa Barbara and San Francisco. I was debating between the two, and LA. And at the end, it was just up to Santa Barbara, San Francisco. Decided to do San Francisco. I had everything set up. I had my plane ticket. I had my dorm. I was registered for classes, and I had not all these obstacles. I had like one one obstacle, and I didn't do it because, yeah, I mean, it was just scary, right? And I was still a kid. And then also your plan has to be good. Like my plan wasn't that good, even though I had everything set up. It wasn't the plan that I wanted to do. Like it was just a version of it that was pleasing my mom still. So I wanted to move to California to pursue acting, to pursue art, right? And my mom was like, no, you can't do that. You shouldn't do that. I'm not going to let you do that. So I thought, okay, I should enroll in school for directing or acting, writing, whatever. And I did. I enrolled the art, not the art institute, but the university, some art school in San Francisco. I forgot what it was called. And it's not the art institute though. And I enrolled, got accepted, was enrolled in classes, and I was going to study directing. And I thought, okay, my mom just wants me to go to school, so this should be fine. Like, I was trying to morph the plan into pleasing multiple people at the same time, like pleasing myself and pleasing my mom. And it wasn't fully what I wanted to do. So it was also easier to give up and easier to succumb to the pressure of not following my dreams and just people please, because like I was, instead of focusing on my dreams and my aspirations and truly getting started in what I love, at the background, the general theme was people pleasing. Like, I really want to do this, but I gotta please. So at the end, the greatest people pleasing energy is gonna win. And that was staying home in Texas and doing something I did not want to do. So you have to also make sure that your plan is good and that it really honors what you want to do, and that there's no people pleasing tendencies involved in it at all. Like, you have to sit down and be fully conscious that this is your dream, your plan, your brainstorming, everything. Like everything is you, and there is no outside forces influencing it unless you want it to, unless you want to draw inspiration from somewhere. But there should never be any sort of external influence that you don't want, because then it's going to be easier to discard the plan whatsoever, because you're not going to be fully invested in a plan that is truly not yours. So that San Francisco plan, even though I would have loved to do that, it wasn't fully mine. I didn't own all of it. It came to be because I was trying to please my mother. I look back and I ponder and I think that if I would have come up with a plan that truly honored my authentic desires, things might have turned out so much differently, because I would not have had the burden of pulling out loans to go to that school. So like for that school, I had to pull out a loan, right? And I didn't get enough financial aid because I was out of state. So I knew that I was going to get into debt. So that was already like a deterrent to pursuing that. But if I would have followed my plan, I would have just like saved up a shit ton of money and then came to LA and gotten a job, like a serving job. Like I would have, si me hubiera puesto las pilas, I would have done it. Like 100% I would have done it. But yeah, I mean, that's a lesson that I learned 11 years later. If you make a plan, if you decide to start a project, start something, or start over, it has to be fully, authentically yours. Another thing that hinders people from starting over is fear of criticism and just fearing what people have to say, their opinion. And I feel this. I think I've been pretty transparent about the way that people's opinions affect me. And they usually don't in general. Like, I really don't give a fuck what people think about me unless I care about the people, right? Like, I would care what my boyfriend's parents think about me. You know, people like that, I would care. But generally, I don't give a fuck what people think about me unless this is my weak spot. This is my weak spot. When it comes to career, I kind of give a fuck, and I give a fuck because I care, because of the way that I think about my career and the expectations that I've set on myself. So I've said on this podcast before that I really want to be successful. Like, that's just one of my main goals. And a lot of the times I hang out with people that have very well established careers. So when they ask, what do you do? I don't want to say what I do, even though it's like fine, right? Like, I bartend, like that's what pays the bills, right? Like, I podcast, I act, yeah, that's it. Like, I've done modeling shit, but that doesn't pay at all. But at the end of the day, what pays the bills is bartending. So it feels weird to say that I'm in the service industry and that I bartend and that I have a job that doesn't require a degree when I have a whole ass master's to people that have degrees and are making six figures, right? And usually, like, the people that are closer to me or that I interact with the most, like, don't care, right? Like, they're very nice people, but I still feel like a sense of shame just because that's not what I want to do forever. Like, I just want to do something more fulfilling than getting people drunk on a fucking weekend and like sacrificing my weekends. And it's great money. It's great money. Like, no shame, because I think bartending is easy money. Well, easy in quotation marks, right? Because not everybody can be a bartender. Not everybody can be a good bartender. But if you're good at it, if you're competent at it, girl, easy money, easy money. But that's just not what the aspirations that I have for myself. And I kind of fear the criticism a little bit when I am asked what I do. And even if I'm not asked, if I'm surrounded by people that have really prestigious jobs, I still feel a little bit of shame. And I even feel shame when people praise me for it. Like, when I went to Outside Lands, these girls were like, oh my God, you're so cool. You're like a bartender. I want to be a bartender. There's so many people that praise it. And at least in LA, like in El Paso, it was not praised at all. Especially because it was dominated, the bartending industry in El Paso was dominated by women. So it was not praised. Not just because it was like a service thing, but because it's dominated by women. I think there was like definitely an undertone of misogyny. But generally, it's not something that it's praised, but in LA, it is sometimes. Like, and especially like depending where you bartend at, it's a pretty coveted thing. But even when people think it's cool and when people themselves want to do it, or if people think it's hot or whatever, I still feel the shame, right? And that's something that I have to work on. I'm not saying it's okay to feel shame. I don't think people should feel shame unless it's something bad that you've done, and this is not bad. Like, I'm making a living, right? Like, I'm working a good job to make a living. So there's no shame in that. But I totally understand the fear of criticism. And the thing with starting over is that you just have to suck it up. Like, you just have to suck it up and not care. At least, like, pretend that you don't care. And that's what I have to do on a continuous basis, is just not care what people say and suck it up. And every time, I have to practice this more because I haven't, but every time somebody asks me what I do and I tell them, I should be more mindful and think and take in a sense of pride that I'm following my dreams, and just do away with the shame, right? Like, practice throwing away that shame and just saying, oh yeah, I bartend. Like, just getting rid of the shame. I need to be more mindful of practicing that in the moment. But I also think that I have the ability to do something that brings me a little bit more fulfillment, even if it's not fully my dream. And it's hard. Like, it's hard to find a 9 to 5 that, if you're creative, like, it's hard to find an office job that's going to fulfill you. But I think social media marketing is my ticket in a little bit. So I'm going to experiment with that. That is my new project. That is my new starting over. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit. Because of the shame that I feel with bartending and the lack of consistency, it's mostly that, honestly. The reason I'm not giving it up, but trying to segue and to start with something new, is that bartending is not consistent money at all, especially in a market like LA, where there is dive bars, but it's mostly, like, I work at a lot of concert venues where it depends on events and raves and shit like that. And there's really nothing that consistent during the week. And surprisingly, people in LA don't go out like that during the week. Like, they're not really drinkers. People in LA do drugs and cocaine. Like, they don't really drink like that. It's very few bars that have the privilege of making a consistent amount of money. Like in El Paso, if you bartended at some dive bar on Cincinnati by the school, by UTEP, bitch, you were set. Like, I was making bank over there. I was making more money in El Paso, not paying rent, than here. It was wild. It was wild. But yeah, so I'm trying to find something that is a little bit more consistent, that brings me more fulfillment, that I can be a little bit more creative with. And I think I would be proud, even if it pays less, I would be proud to say something like that I work in marketing. And I'm trying to delineate if it's a pride thing, like I want something that sounds good, or if I just genuinely want to start over. I think it's a combination of both. I think I do want to experience something new, but yes, this is my way. This is what I'm doing to start over in my career. I am on the search for a full-time, consistent income that I will be able to hone into my creativity, and I'll be proud of doing, like truly proud of doing. And I can, if it's not enough money, then I can just do bartending on the side instead of trying to pick up shifts and hating my fucking life. So yeah, that's my new project. I'm gonna do that just so I can pay off my debt. And once I'm done with that, I'm not gonna spill the beans on what I'm gonna do next, but I have a plan and I'm really, really excited, because once I get the little life bullshit things out of the way, like consistent income and paying off my credit card debts my credit card debt that I acquired during, I don't know if it was an episode, but it might have been. So once I get rid of that, and once I adult and become responsible again, then I can really amp up my creative projects. Because right now I'm doing creative things. I'm keeping myself busy, doing things that I like. But my big projects are waiting, and they're there. And I have everything organized, and just hoping that it works out. I think the biggest things that hinder people are getting started, period, and not people pleasing or fearing criticism. Once you get rid of all those things, dude, you just do it like that. Because let's say, like, I go into marketing and I fucking hate that bitch and I can't stand it and I don't want to go into the office, or I don't want to open my laptop. Okay, I'm fully prepared for that. That is okay. That is fine. I don't think that'll happen, but if it does, it's okay. It's okay. I am prepared for anything, and I'm just doing my fucking best, bitch. I'm just doing my best. Starting over also has so many advantages. Like, you can gain so many skills, so many experiences. Like, you really become a multifaceted person when you take on a lot of projects. And if you don't like something, you can discard of it and start over and apply your lessons, etc. For example, even though the way I started over in the past prior to my move, even though it wasn't so intentional, bitch, I have a whole ass fucking master's degree. I have an award. Like, I don't know, like starting over got me my degrees, even if it was messy. So that I have those advantages that I don't know if they help me much in the job market nowadays, but hey, I mean, I have that at least. I have the experience. I read the whole Bible. I read the entire Bible. So, yeah. Also, I got to really polish my acting skills and learn about the industry. One important lesson that I learned during my intentional starting over process was the way that I was valuing fame and why I wanted it so bad, because I love acting and I love being creative and I truly want to do it because it's mine. Like I really love it. But the whole fame aspect was definitely a driving force. Like they were pretty equal. So I think starting getting started in the acting industry taught me a lot about myself. It made me look inward and it made me ask myself, like, why do you want fame? Do you just want to be seen? Do you just want recognition? Do you just want praise? Like, why do you want it so bad when you could act forever regardless? Like making art is a privilege. And regardless of fame, you're always going to be able to do it. So why are you tripping? Why are you fucking tripping? So that's the biggest lesson that I've taken away, and that's more valuable than any degree, than any book I've read or anything like that, because I have liberty. Like I am not tied to the outcome of, oh, I want to be famous, or I want to win an Oscar before a certain age, or I want to be part of this movie or work with this person. Like, yeah, a lot of those things may be aspirations, but I'm not attached to them whatsoever, because the reason I got into this is because I love acting. Like I love feeling the emotions. I love putting myself into somebody else's experience and saying the words that they would say and how they would say them, and experimenting with different ways that they would say that same thing. So I truly love it. And my goal now is to just do it forever, regardless of the outcome. And the key to doing that forever is getting my shit together, because I did it. I messed up a little bit in the break period, and now I got to fix that mess so I could keep doing it. And that's all I'm looking forward to, because you're just free. Like that is really the main takeaway from being fearless and starting over many times, is that you have the liberty to do whatever the fuck you want. So if something doesn't work out, whatever, you could just do it again. Apply those lessons, go to the next thing. And you gain skills, you gain lessons, and you have fun. Like that's really the main takeaway, is you have fun and you get seasoned in life. It's always important to have a good perspective, and good outcomes are just bonuses, because when people say that what really matters is the journey, they ain't lying. Like it's true. And I always thought that was so cheesy, and that it's not realistic that people need to have positive outcomes. And that's true to some extent. Like I do strongly desire positive outcomes and money from my art, because money just enables me to keep doing it. Like if I'm able to make money off my art, then I could do more of it, right? But sometimes that could be a double-edged sword, because sometimes you're just like drawn to, you have to make money. You're just like a working fucking mule, and you don't even get to be fully creative anymore. I hear this from a lot of influencers, that they start with making art, with making their videos and their content, and then they start to get brand deals and make a lot of money, but the brands want them to do it a certain way, so they no longer have creative power. So the reason they started, it stops being fun, because they're no longer doing it for the reason that they started doing it. Like now they're doing it for money. So it can be a double-edged sword, right? And now I'm just fully focused on, I want to do these projects. I want to act. I want to write. I want to do things. And I'm not gonna say it, even though I've spilled beans already. But yeah, yeah, and I'm really excited. I don't know, like that just makes me warm. That makes me feel so much more peaceful and at ease than being tied to, oh my God, I have to be successful. I have to do this. And the fact that I'm not attached to the outcome and that I just want to make art is making it easier for me to let go of bartending and the service industry. Because one of the reasons that people stay in service industry, that actors stay in service industry, is because they think that they don't want to, and I've done this myself, they don't want to be tied to something full time that'll distract them from their art. But I no longer see it that way. I feel like anything is really possible, and now I just want something to fund my art, to fund my life, and bartending ain't cutting it. So I want to do something that still honors who I am, my authenticity, that gives me money, and yeah, I don't even have to do it forever. So it's not gonna hinder my creativity, because if you really love something, there's always gonna be a way. Even if you don't have a lot of time with things, you're always gonna motherfucking find a way to do things if you really love it. Also, this makes it so much easier for me to be authentic and to have integrity. Like, because I'm not attached to an outcome, I wouldn't say yes to certain projects, and I wouldn't say yes to certain deals that I don't believe in. Like, let's say that the podcast started taking off, right? And Shein wanted me to do an ad, and they were paying me a lot of money. I would be tempting. I'm not gonna lie. It would be tempting, but at the end of the day, I wouldn't do it, because that's just something that I do not believe in at all. Like I used to shop Shein, and I do it for some things that I needed, like for my podcast, but I've cut it out tremendously. Like, I don't shop there at all. I'm trying to just mainly thrift my things, and I'll buy fast fashion things like once in a blue moon. But that's just something that I don't believe in and I don't want to promote. Like, I just want to be authentic to my values and my art. I don't want to taint it. I want to do my best. Sometimes I know that I'm going to make mistakes, but I don't want to taint it. I don't want to taint a podcast that is trying to motivate people, that is uplifting women and queer people, and I'm over here preaching about integrity and values, and then 2 seconds later you hear me yapping about use code blah 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 to get 30% off your slavery clothing. Like, no. If you ever hear my voice on an ad, it's because I decided to make the ad. Anything that is not my voice is just a platform doing it, by the way. Like, that's just the my distributor that does the ads. But if you hear my voice on anything, is because I took that deal, because I chose to make that deal. And I don't want to make those kinds of deals because I don't want to take my art. And same with acting. Like, I don't want to take any projects that are racist or misogynistic or just shitty. Because why? Like, why would I do that? If I want to be famous, my main goal is to be famous, then I see the value in that, right? Like, there's definitely value. But no, like, I just want to do the right thing and have fun doing it. Like, I want to do what I want to do. I don't want to do anything I don't want to do. And I will die on that fucking hill. I will die on that hill. Like, if I'm doing something I don't want to do, it's going to be to fuel something that I really, really want to do. For example, bartending. I don't want to do that, but I have to do it because I have to pay bills. So yeah, if there's anything that I don't have to do, then I won't do it. I hope that made sense. Probably didn't. But anyway, I'm going to conclude with this. Starting over many times, having many lives, has been an amazing journey, even the messy parts, even the non-intentional parts, because it's a road of self-discovery at the end of the day, especially when you're intentional with it. It's the road to self-discovery. You pick a path, you commit to it, you make sure that it's yours and nobody else's. And if you don't like it, you learn so many things. And if you end up loving it, you learn so many things. Like it's gonna be an enriching and positive experience regardless. And yeah, like nothing else really matters because life is so fucking short. It is so short. I don't want to verbalize this, but I'm going to for the sake of this episode. I fear death. Like, I don't like thinking of death. It makes me feel icky. It makes me feel like disgusted inside just because it's scary, right? But thinking about death also puts a lot of things into perspective because it makes you think about what you're doing with your life and if you are honoring yourself and honoring those that you love. It makes you ask yourself if you're doing what you really want to do, if you're honoring yourself, your integrity, your values, your choice, your autonomy. Like, if you live in a first world country, if you are able-bodied for the most part, like even if you're not able-bodied, like there's still a lot of privileges that come with living in a first world country. You have choice. You have choice over your life. Everybody has some control, and it's up to you to take it and go with it. Yeah, I always think that, like, damn, I could just do whatever I want right now. Like, I could go outside if I want to, I could get in my car, I could go to sleep, I could go to the gym. Like, you really have choice over everything that you do, and you just have to get over those stupid societal hurdles that are made up and shouldn't exist. And that's it. It's really simple. It might not be easy, but it's really simple. And thinking about the simplicity of it should make it easier. Because at the end of the day, it's your life, bitch, and nobody else's. And I know it's really cheesy when people say that and people just like kind of brush it over. But no, there's so much value in that phrase. It is your life. You choose what you want to do with your life. Like, really, really think about that. There's so much power in that. But yes, I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. I've been trying to keep them short. I don't know if this one's going to be short, but thank you. Thank you very much. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you so much for listening. I appreciate everyone that listens to my yapping because I don't know how I'm just like blah, 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 blah. I really don't get it. I don't know how I do it. But yeah. Anyway, thank you guys so much, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.